your movie recap in a flash. We bring the drama, the action, and the twists in minutes. The series begins with Sydney walking down the street, her body drenched in blood, talking to herself and saying that the diary is the reason for everything that happened. We go back in time to Sydney getting off the bus to school. Sydney is a normal, ordinary 17-year-old girl, not special in anything, which is why she's almost invisible at her school. No one notices her or cares to get to know her. The idea of keeping a diary comes from her guidance counselor, because Sydney often loses her temper and has become excessively irritable ever since her father committed suicide last year. She even once cut her hair for no reason. The guidance counselor asks her to write anything and everything about her life in the diary, as if she's talking to herself. Sydney doesn't have many friends, just one close friend named Dina, whom she met when she first moved to the city. Dina is her only and closest friend. They hang out together at a diner, where Dina tells her she has a boyfriend named Bradley. Bradley joins them, and it's clear that Sydney doesn't like him at all. She can't even smile at him, and always talks sarcastically about the life she wishes she could have. She wishes Bradley would stop talking altogether, or erase the stupid grin from his face, or stay away from Dina. Suddenly, Bradley gets a nosebleed, and his smile disappears because of the pain he feels. Sydney thinks her wish came true. After their outing, she heads home, trying to convince herself that she has superpowers, and that she caused Bradley's nosebleed. But she tells herself it's just a coincidence. She meets her neighbor Stanley, who lives at the end of her street. He walks with her, and she notes that Stanley is the opposite of her. He doesn't care about others' opinions and does whatever he wants. He asks her to come over to his place to listen to music he likes. She says she'll think about it and will let him know her decision later. She arrives home, where she lives with her mother and younger brother. However, she doesn't feel happy or comfortable there. Her mother annoys her by constantly asking her to do things she doesn't like, such as looking after her brother or helping with work. Sydney feels obligated to obey her mother to avoid arguments. Her relationship with her brother is better than with her mother. She can talk and joke with him. Her brother tells her he plans to design a superhero suit to defend himself against a bully named Richard if he tries to pick on him. Sydney reassures him that if Richard bothers him before the suit is ready, she'll deal with him herself and protect him since their father committed suicide in the basement a year ago. Sydney never talks about her father's death with her mother, but she feels a deep anger inside whenever she thinks about him. One night, while sitting alone in her room, she suddenly notices a crack in the wall. The next day, she tries to hide the crack by covering it with furniture. She prepares breakfast for her brother while her mother gets ready for work. Her brother is raising a small pet hedgehog named Mr. Perfecto, and he tells her that their mother warned him not to leave the hedgehog in the toaster or it might burn. Sydney jokes with him and says she can control objects with her mind. She stares at the toaster, pretending to make the toast jump out, but it actually does. She laughs it off, thinking it's just a coincidence and not a real superpower. Later, she heads to school and finds Stanley driving his father's car. He offers her a ride to school and asks her opinion about the upcoming school dance. It's clear he wants to invite her to go with him, but she tells him she hates dances and finds them boring and stupid. Stanley awkwardly drops the idea and doesn't invite her. At school, Sydney suggests to Dina that they hang out after school to buy some things for her house, but Dina tells her she's going out with Bradley to attend his practice session for an important game. Sydney feels upset and frustrated, thinking that Dina is drifting away from her. Back at home, Sydney becomes very angry about how distant Dina has become. She picks up a rock and throws it with all her strength, only to see it smash through an iron fence and fly far away, as if she really has superpowers. She looks around and sees no one witnessed what happened. She convinces herself it's just her imagination. Later, she goes to Stanley's house to ask him to come with her to buy groceries since he has a car. On their way, Stanley stops to give something to someone, and Sydney jokingly asks if he's a drug dealer. He replies that he's just helping out someone he knows. They reach the store, and Sydney picks out everything she needs. At the checkout, the total is $67, but her mother only gave her $50. Embarrassed, she has to return some items. Feeling humiliated in front of Stanley and the cashier. She becomes extremely frustrated with the situation, the cashier's judgmental look, and her overall circumstances. She tries to calm herself, but fails. Suddenly, all the items on the shelves around her fall to the ground, as if she moved them with her mind. Stanley hears the noise and comes to check on her. Feeling overwhelmed, she runs out of the store, thinking Stanley will now think she's weird like everyone else. However, Stanley follows her and reassures her that he likes her and finds her interesting because everyone else in town is boring. He gives her a cigarette containing marijuana to help her relax. For the first time in a long while, Sydney feels her mind clear up. They go to watch a school game, and Sydney wishes Bradley would get hurt. During the game, Bradley gets injured and the match is cancelled. Afterward, Sydney and Stanley go to his house to listen to music together. Sydney starts to suspect that she might have feelings for Stanley and wonders if she could ever be in a relationship with someone. However, her feelings remain uncertain even after talking with Dinah. She and her brother went, trying to avoid riding with Stanley because she no longer felt comfortable being around him. They continued their way home, where they encountered his friend Richard, who bullied him. Sydney tried to confront Richard, but he wasn't scared or affected by her. She thought her powers might harm him, but failed, and ended up warning him not to bother her brother again. She then took Liam home, where he expressed his desire to play puzzles like he used to with their father. However, all the games were in the basement where their father had committed suicide, a place she hadn't visited since. To fulfill Liam's request, she reluctantly went to the basement alone to retrieve the game. Being there reminded her of her father's death and how he left without leaving any message or explanation. She became increasingly upset, causing everything around her to shake violently. Suddenly, she heard Liam screaming and rushed to him, finding him holding Mr. Perfecto in his hands, saying it had died all of a sudden. She blamed herself for its death, believing her powers were responsible. She wrote in her diary that she had killed the pet because of her uncontrollable powers. They buried it together, and later, she went to her room, thinking about her father. Suddenly, everything around her started flying in the air, crashing against the desk and floor. She wrote in her diary that she indeed had superpowers but couldn't control them. She believed it was all because of Bradley's influence, and blamed herself for what happened to the pet. Afterward, she went to Dina, who invited her to a party. It was supposed to be an event Bradley would attend if he hadn't been injured. They helped Dina choose a dress, and Sydney was shocked to see Dinah planning to go in an outfit completely unsuitable for the party's vibe. Sydney decided to attend the party with Stanley, who she had refused to dress up for. At the party, Dinah acted like she was enjoying Sydney's company, even dancing with her. But when Bradley showed up, he took Dinah away, leaving Sydney standing alone. She grabbed her jacket and left the party, playing basketball near her house. Stanley found her there and asked her to attend the school dance with him. She wanted to refuse and tell him she didn't see him as a romantic partner, but couldn't bring herself to disappoint him, and agreed. She excused herself, saying she needed to return to Dina at the party. Upon finding Dina crying alone after a big fight with Stanley, Sydney tried to comfort her. However, their closeness led to a misunderstanding, and Sydney told Dina they were probably drunk and not in control of their actions. Overwhelmed, Sydney ran out of the house and crossed the road so suddenly that she caused a car accident to avoid being hit herself. She ran into the forest, screaming as a massive energy burst from her, destroying everything around her and uprooting trees. The car involved in the accident turned out to be Stanley's, and he witnessed everything Sydney did. She tried to cover it up, claiming the trees were already like that when she arrived, but Stanley told her he saw everything. She became upset and made him promise not to reveal her secret to anyone. Sydney then went to an abandoned watchtower in the forest, a place she liked to visit when she was upset, and wrote in her diary about how her powers were growing stronger and harder to control. She returned home only to wake up to an argument with her mother, who accused her of neglecting the house while she worked. Sydney retorted that her father wouldn't have made such demands if he were alive. Her mother reminded her that she wasn't the one who had died, and asked her to help take care of her brother so she could work more and provide for them. Sydney stormed out after the fight. At school, Sydney tried to avoid Dinah after what happened between them. Stanley chased after her, insisting on talking about the previous night. He told her he had read about superpowers and believed they needed to explore the extent of hers. He provoked her in the school lab, causing everything around her to move, and she ran to the bathroom, afraid of losing control and hurting others. While in the bathroom, she calmed herself by thinking about her brother Liam. Dinah followed her to check on her, saying she noticed Sydney had suddenly left the lab. Dinah assured Sydney she and Bradley had reconciled and were back together, wanting to ensure there were no hard feelings between them. Sydney told her everything was fine and that she would forget what happened the previous night. Later, Sydney went home and reflected on Stanley's suggestion to learn more about her powers. She went to the bowling alley where Stanley worked and told him she was ready to listen to his theories. He asked her to try knocking down a tower of cans or making popcorn pop using only her mind, but she failed. Stanley asked why she had been in the forest, and she confessed she had done something she regretted with someone, got angry, and lost control, causing the incident in the forest. Stanley realized her powers were triggered by anger and tried to provoke her by commenting on her dysfunctional family and her father's suicide. This angered Sydney, causing the bowling balls behind her to lift into the air and fly towards Stanley. He was thrilled to see his theory proven, but upset Sydney, who told him she could have killed him, and left. The next day, Sydney had an exam at school and wrote in her diary that she needed to remain calm and composed to avoid hurting anyone. She saw Dinah trying to help Bradley cheat on the test, but the teacher caught them and punished them both by failing the exam. Sydney got upset and spoke to the teacher inappropriately, so Stanley joins her too and also throws books on the floor so that he can be detained with Sydney after school, and he renews his detention in order to be detained there and be late to go home. A new one named Jenny cleans for them. She is known to be crazy and was in a rehabilitation center. Jenny prefers to talk to Sydney until she gets upset because of her bullying. She leaves before she gets angry. She quickly gets up from the place and goes to the school library. She stays alone for a while, and then she runs to Stanley and asks for his help immediately. He goes with her and finds that the whole library is destroyed because of her strength. They say that the problem is not in the library, but in the camera that recorded everything and the storage unit in the principal's room. They think about how they will enter the office, and its key is with the principal, but he says that the spare key is with the cleaner, and that they need a third person to stay with them to lure the cleaner so that they can steal the key from him. So they come to Diana and tell her that they had to bring the recording before the director sees it. So with luck, she helps them and is able to take the keys from him, and they start to implement their plan. And Stanley goes and puts 2 sandwiches in the microwave at the highest temperature to the point that they explode and make a loud noise. And at that moment, the director comes out towards the source of the sound, and they move to his office and try to open it and enter, and they manages to steal the flash drive of the camera's recording. After they succeed, Sydney goes to the bathroom of the hall and hears Bradley talking to a girl about the relationship they had together at the birthday party, and Sydney hears everything that happened between them and knows that Bradley betrayed Jenny, and as soon as he sees her, he tells her not to tell Jenny and to forgive him, but she tells Jenny as soon as she sees her, and Jenny cuts her relationship with Bradley immediately and leaves and walks out of the hall. He stays with Sydney and tells her that he will take revenge on her for what she did it. And after they all left school, he was waiting for me, excited to know exactly what happened in the library. So she said that after she got mad at Jenny, she went and sat in the library alone, and suddenly the lights started to turn off and on by themselves, and she felt that there was someone with her in the place who was the reason for what happened to the light, until she got very angry and couldn't control her nerves, and all the bookshelves around her fell, and she said that she was sure that someone was watching her, and she wished she knew who it was, and they played the recording and kept watching it. Maybe they would find someone who was really watching her, and she didn't go crazy and imagined that she was being watched, and she didn't find anyone in the recording. But the feeling that someone was watching her was still with her, and she wrote everything but the feeling that someone was watching her was still with her, and she wrote everything that happened to her in her diary, and she went to school the next day and found out that an investigation was opened because of what happened in the library, and Bradley came to her and told her that he would make her regret what she did, and that Dina will not leave her, and he is threatening Sydney to get out of his way. At that time, Jenny is looking for Sydney to ask her about the truth of what happened in the library, because this does not look like a library destroyed, because two people had a relationship in it, and that there is something she is hiding, and Sydney cannot tell her what happened, and this bothers Jenny more than her, and she gets upset and annoyed with her, and Sydney remains preoccupied with us all day and does not listen to anything Stanley says to her until she tells him that she is not interested in what he says and is not interested in coming with him to the school party at all, and it is better that he looks for someone else instead. And her words are so silly that they hurt Stanley and make him get up from in front of her, and she returns home to find her brother hit in his eye by Richard because of what she said to Richard, and he holds the days responsible for hitting him, and thus she takes the blame and says that she became a bad friend and a bad sister in one day, and she does not find a place in the house to rest. There is only the basement, and she says that her father must have left a message for her even before his death, and about her ability or the reason for his death even, and she keeps searching in the place until she finds a locked iron box in front of her. So she wants to open it with her strength until she succeeds, and finds in it her father's army uniform, and in it his ID chain, and she finds her mother came down to her and asks about what she does with her father's things, and Sydney tells her that she wants to know what these things are. So she wanted to tell her everything about her father, and that he was a volunteer in the Navy, and after everything he saw about operations that were in front of him or that he carried out, he started to change as if he lost his soul and started to act in a strange way, and there was someone watching, and she feels that her father went through the same stages as her now, and that the last operation he carried out in the army was a chemical explosion, and all the people present and the residents died in the area where her father was, and none of them knew how he was the only one who lived until he committed suicide and hanged himself to rest, and Sydney almost knew that the power she has is due to the chemical explosion that happened to her father, and it was transferred to her in a way she does not know, and she quickly goes out to write everything she knew in her diary, but her bag does not disappear, and she is sad that she lost it. And the next day comes, and Sydney has two choices in front of her. Either she surrenders like her father and her end up like him, or she resists and accepts her truth and does not care about the opinions of others in order to continue life and live with her brother and mother, and she thinks that she is living her life, and she is hit by Richard, and after that she goes to her school and finds that Dina is sorry for her, that she got involved more than necessary in something she does not want to talk about, and they reconcile. And Sydney told Dina she had broken things off with Stanley, deciding they were better off as friends. Dina suggested they go to the party together, since neither of them had anyone else to go with, and each one goes to her house to wear the best clothes she has. Both of them head to the party. They are very happy to be together at the party. Sydney enjoys the party and sees Sydney in front of her, dancing. She says that she loves him as a friend and not as a lover. He asks her if she came with someone. She says she is with Dinah, her friend, instead of sitting with her and not being at the party. After fixing things, she goes to Dinah and dances with her. Suddenly, Bradley grabs the party mic and starts talking about Sydney, who ruined his relationship with Dinah. He says she has notes written in which everything is detailed, and that she destroyed his relationship with Dinah because she loves her, not as a friend. That's why she was trying to separate them. Not to mention that she is a hated person because no one likes her or obeys her, even her mother, who always argues with her, and her brother, who was the reason her friend distanced himself from her. He tries to protect her, but Bradley beats him and continues his speech. He says the only person who was close to her was her father, who couldn't stand her and eventually committed suicide to get rid of her. At that moment, Sydney reaches the peak of her anger. She keeps talking to herself, hoping he would stop and not say anything more, because she can't control herself. She remembers all the moments she used her power until she manages to blow up Bradley's head in front of everyone. No one knows the reason for what happened, and everyone flees the party. Sydney is drenched in Bradley's blood and keeps walking in the street, shocked, running towards the forest. She climbs up the observation tower and decides that she must stay away from everyone and live alone so as not to hurt anyone close to her. But she finds a cloud of smoke behind her, and a man forms out of it, his face unclear, telling her that she is now ready to join him. If you liked today's video, don't forget to like, subscribe to the channel, and activate the bell to receive all new updates. See you in the next video. Goodbye.